This video is going to be scraps and pieces from what I looked up today that I needed to look up, so I figure maybe you need to see them too or find out about them. First thing, a video by Paul Harrell about felt recoil. I left some comments there and he may cover it, but he covered some very important things about what happens when you fire any weapon. Now, this is the action versus reaction physics part of it, but basically, yes or no, the total energy output from a gun, shotgun, rifle, pistol, whatever, is expressed as a shock pushing back on you, action versus reaction, and all or most of the energy or some portion of the energy is applied to the bullet. If it's a small bullet, it has a smaller surface area and it applies it more pressure. Now, when you look up this information going from, let's say, a 12 gauge, 10,000 psi or whatever, up to hundreds and hundreds of psi on a 17 caliber pellet gun bullet coming out, you find out that this might actually be true, but let's discuss this. At the 46-second mark, he makes a notation. Real recoil in foot-pounds or joules of energy. Could that translate to the foot-pounds or joules of energy on impact if you hit a target right out of the barrel? And it should. You'd think it would. But is there anything absorbing energy in the gun to where it would not be felt recoil? Or is it perceived recoil versus actual recoil? And is this energy on impact versus felt recoil versus potential maximum? Where does the energy go? Because it has to go in two different directions. It has to split between them. This is the reason that if you run two cars at each other at 55, it does not actually add up to the same thing as hitting an object at 110. It doesn't actually, but anyway, at 46 second, felt recoil. The stock's shape and size will have an effect on how you perceive it. Obviously, if you spread out all of the pressure over a large surface area, like your entire chest, it won't push as much. It'll be spread out. It'll be, eventually, if you spread it out large enough surface area, if you could spread it out all over your body, you wouldn't even sense it. And this is something that the Royal Nunsuch channel did. He made something called, he called it the defibrillator gun. He literally spread out the force over his body by making a frame that would hold over his chest, because he wanted to make it to where he could, do this in such a way that he could fire a gun and try to get rid of the recoil entirely on his shoulders. Also, the weight of the firearm has the effect of making it to where it stores the energy and then dissipates it over time. This is the same idea as you can jump from a higher distance if you spread out the amount of energy and force over a longer period of time by discharging it. By having the energy go into trying to push a larger mass, the larger mass tends to want to stay there. It will move, but this is sort of like punching a freight train. It's not going to move as far as a beer can, full or empty. The mass of the projectile, if you fire a very light projectile, it's got less to push against that way. Okay. Now this is within the closed chamber of the shotgun barrel or rifle or pistol. Not a rocket can't work in a vacuum because it has nothing to push against. It's pushing out what was in the rocket out. That's what it's pushing against. But anyway, flat earth it. Next, the speed caused by how much propellant can cause perceived or real recoil or pressure. So obviously, if we manipulate these things, we can reduce the recoil in the gun or in our recoilless rifle or tank. You could make it to where it absorbs the energy by pushing the barrel backwards without actually applying any pressure to the mount, as is done on some ships. You may have noticed that it either comes backwards really quickly or it goes back really slowly, sometimes contributing to a pressure chamber used for launching, catapulting aircraft or whatever. I don't even know. See also opposing pistons in a V8 engine. You can recycle the energy and reuse it. See also some of the pressures used to cycle the mechanism for loading the next round in some systems. At 1 minute and 42 seconds, shotgun chamber slop, how much extra space there is or how much whatever, the forcing cone angle, meaning the first thing that acts as a reduction in diameter in the shotgun, the angle at angle. Bore condition, aka, and taper, aka is the barrel acting like it's perfectly smooth? Is it slowing down the material? And maybe the choke. A choke the forcing cone, any damage in the barrel, and any slop that causes the shell to expand violently or push back inside of the chamber because the headspace is wrong can also cause a recoil effect because it can act like it's propelling it backwards against the frame to you with a running start. And the other one that's a rather major one is, are you holding the thing away from you so that it runs into you like a propelled item? So the thing that was not brought up was those issues that I just talked about. The reason this is being brought up in this video is those are things I've seen even on his channel that he's mentioned as being significant details that aren't just details. Let's talk about the next layer. Lower mass projectiles are used. This is the only thing you can do with ammunition. You reduce the amount of material that you're throwing, how big of a propellant it is, maybe the diameter of the bullet. You might actually put a built-in reduction on it for projectiles, like using a smaller diameter slug versus a large one. Also, if the object in question chokes in the bore, you can get more recoil. And then the presumption here is, you may have it may have a tighter pattern or have less recoil, or it might spread more depending on what's going on with it. Okay? Now, now I'm going to bring up a couple of things here that will also affect it. Someday when I'm indoors, I'm not going to do it in a physics program. I'm going to be making the pipe shotgun barrel not slam fire to get rid of the slam fire factor, because there's a gun that actually slam fired and created a second impact. But here we go. Some pieces of pipe are the same diameter as the declared bore diameter for 12 gauge, but the shell is larger. Some pipes are the same diameter throughout of the entire 12 gauge shell. And what's been noticed is if you have the entire bore of the tube exactly the same diameter, not any bigger or smaller, no slap factor, it doesn't widen out or it doesn't shrink or it doesn't suddenly shrink, you get very little recoil. In fact, to the point that you don't have to really work at making sure that it's in that pocket in that pipe. Pistol grip only shotgun reasoning and or tests. Now, there's Gun Jesus in another channel talking, that video will be linked below. And at the 1910 mark, the conclusion that I came to, and I posted here, double barrel shotguns, because they can fire 2 shots quickly and only need to be locked shut and fired, can be faster than a pump action for just 2 shots. Shell ejectors are now mandatory on double barrels. This is a conclusion I came to. This is more junk. Because when I watch them try to put in the 3rd shot just in case, or just 2 of them at a time jamming it in, it's not like a video game. You need it when you open it. When you break open a break-action shotgun, it can have something that elevates the cartridges out. That's the original name for it in French or something. And it can also snap and pop them out. And again, then you can put the cartridges in. But if you have to sit there and fiddle with them and try to get them out, it's harder to do. And that was what was really slowing them down. But it was faster than a pump action, because pump action shotguns, unless you have really good ammunition and you actually experiment with them, they're harder to fire, especially if they're pistol grip. And then, of course, the question came up, why would anyone buy one of these except to be tactical or give a middle finger to the NFA, National Firearms Act 1930s, or the ATF off, as I say? The reason is very simple. By having the machine born, this is how they explain it. If you buy a double barrel, or a pump action shotgun that does not have a buttstock on it, the ATF and the NFA do not declare it to be anything other than a firearm, meaning it has to be individually understood to be something. Because it doesn't have a buttstock or a handle as born, and then you can put a handle or buttstock on it, it's not a shotgun. It's not regulated the same way. You can do all sorts of weird things. They called it a loophole, but I call it a purist weapon. Because at this point, until you put a full buttstock on it, you can do whatever you want to. Just like the gun where you can take it apart and put it back together and make it into anything else. If you ever, under any conditions, supposedly, start off with having a buttstock and put any barrel on it, it immediately has to stay a shotgun forever, or a rifle. If you put a short barrel on it, it's a short-barreled rifle or shotgun, and it can't be a pistol anymore. And if you have a pistol with longer than a certain amount of buttstock material, it's not a pistol anymore. Instead of just having these stupid rules that are there just to basically get an excuse to arrest somebody, basically they should say that if you can make it less than 26 inches long, it has to be pistol formatted. Period, full stop. That's it. That means no buttstocks. That means no hand brace. They could actually make a conclusion like that. What they're doing is leaving a lot of wiggle room so people futz around with it. And this brings up my next problem. I want to build a testing bay which uses short barrels and long barrels to test what the effects are. But in order to do it, I have to put a dongle of putting a handle on it if I'm doing short barrels, or a buttstock if I'm doing long barrels. Or never put them on in the first place, which makes it a continuous firearm, unless it's got a short barrel, in which case I have to put a pistol grip on it. All of this to be able to test velocities and PSI ratings and maybe come up with a better mechanism for just mounting the barrels on. Or I can skip it, use a 12-gauge shotgun with a pistol grip that's break action, which is goofy, and just stick in sub-caliber barrels in it that are short, and they don't care. They have a bunch of rules about this, but the rules are there for a specific reason, for manufacturing and selling, not for a person like me making them or testing them. But the one thing I found from that video, the big takeaway from this other video with Gun Jesus and his friend, is that a double-barrel shotgun is pretty much, you have to really consider having ejectors on it. They don't allow it to be used if you're using it in competitions, but there's no practical reason to go without it. And pump-action shotguns should be able to cycle any damn garbage shell that they have. If they can't, if the Mossberg you've got doesn't cycle it, get rid of it, because that jam-up can be really bad. And the other one they show is, I mean, I'm sorry, but pistol grip shotguns I've never thought are a good idea. The reason you make them is because then you can change them into a real gun. But you have to take everything apart and just have the mechanism. You have to do it the way you do with the Contender or whatever it is. I forgot the name of it. Barrel action slam fire pipe shotgun versus bolt action. Pipe or barrel action, where you pull the barrel back like a slam fire, but it doesn't fire, it just has a trigger and a hammer and firing pin, was a subject matter I left in there. And I also asked them, hey, why don't you do quick shooting with the Cobra Arms slam fire shotgun that's evil? Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is you can make a pump action shotgun that moves the shotgun barrel. It can be done. I've come up with a design. Now I'm going to go up to the top here. Notes I've made. Blank starter pistols banned in New York and California, or not. Anywhere from $30 to $300 for some blasted reason. Blanks have to be sent UPS ground shipping only. Age limit to receive a mail order air gun or blank gun from a Canadian company in Canada is 16, but in the United States it's 21. Gun control in Canada, because 22 caliber starter pistols can be bought that are not 22. They're rimfire if they're 22 caliber and blah blah blah, and they use a blank and they have an obstruction in the barrel, or don't even have an open barrel on them. And you can also get ones that use 209 primers, and the primers are very close to the same diameter as a 22 caliber bullet or cartridge. Specifically the 22 caliber Magnum, not the normal long rifle or long, which is kind of funny because then you could use a piece of straw from your local store and make a little tiny shotgun shell just out of that. Oh, wait a minute, that's a centerfire primer. Yes, you can put an extra firing pin on a rimfire. It's not illegal, it just means it'll fire Velodog centerfire 22 caliber bullets. Or you can use blanks that have extra sensitizer in them. Some of them do. But anyway, I wanted to point out something. Rimmed centerfire Magnum pistol rounds can be made by using a 1-inch brass tube over a 0.24-inch maximum diameter 209 primer neck as a 0.242 Magnum tapered mouth to allow for a 0.224 long rifle or Magnum bullet. The base of it would be 0.245 maximum, oversized for a 209 tube. And the rim, the outside edge, would be 31 caliber instead of the normal size for 22. So you could modify these things to actually use the primers as noisemakers. Now, why did I bring it up? The numbers below will give you the information, but I just thought it was interesting that that could be done. Also, some other details like CO2 cartridges being cut in half to make signal cartridges, and all sorts of things. The Hunter signal, so there's a screw type CO2 cartridge that's used expediently to make those. Apparently that's part of the patent, and it was originally an Air Force thing. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring up all this weird shit I found. It's interesting, and I left some comments on it. Comment below if you understand any of this and want to tell me I'm an idiot, or if you have anything to add. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good